Hi, my people, for the Pink Barnanza. I am so excited. We are in month 2 of Shoot for the Stars, and this is also going to be a quick one. We are working with strips, and I did not color coordinate to the pattern. Just to clarify that, I just grabbed some random cuts from my scraps to do this, but the technique is the same, and I would want you to choose any colors that you want to use for your block of the month. Shoot for the Stars. The only thing that the only technique really that I want to share on this is that we should, when we sew our strips together, we don't want to sew them from the same side each time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this orange strip and this yellow, and I'm going to sew them. So when I start at the top of this one, then the next one I want to start at the bottom so that we can keep those variances, because you'll start to see that when you just keep sewing them from the same side that maybe it'll like slope down, and sometimes it kind of helps, and it helps with the way that the machine stitches them. That's just a trick that you learned when you sewed your first Bargello or anytime you do a lot of strips. The other thing that I'm going to say is that you'll probably want to measure. Sometimes when we sew a lot of seams in one area, we might have to use a scant seam allowance, but we do have these background strips on the outer edges. So if for some reason you've sewn your colored strips together and it doesn't quite come out to the size that you need, you can always just make these a little bit wider, use them as coping strips. Nobody is going to know in the grand scheme of things, because we're cutting this to the length that we need, which is 24.5. So that's just a little fix in case you need to do that. We found when we were sewing the sample, anytime there was a lot of seams, that it was better to use a scant seam allowance, even though the math is correct. But one of my sample sewers actually did an experiment, and she took a 1/4 inch foot from 3 or 4 of her different machines, and they were all slightly off. And so she sews on the one that gives her the most perfect 1/4 inch. So just to let you know that we all have variances, and sometimes those tiny little things matter when you have a very bulky quilt. So just as long as we're consistent and we have those little things that we can fix along the way, right? We can be creative and fix those design opportunities that come our way, right? So anyway, let's start sewing so we can get this block done. It's pretty easy. We're just sewing strips together, but there's just something magical about these little rocket ships that are going into space. Okay, so now we're going to sew the purple onto the gold, and I'm just going to go ahead and start at this end rather than the other end that we sewed these 2 strips together. And even though there's variances in the fabric, that's perfectly fine, because I know we have plenty of fabric. We cut whole strips and we only need 24.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and line this purple one up on the yellow and sew this strip together. And now we can go ahead and sew the background strips to the purple side. Okay, and now that we have all of those lined up the way that they're supposed to be, I'm going to go ahead and sew those to the middle strip, our little foundation strip here. Okay, and now we have our strips sewn together. And now we're going to press. And in this particular situation, we don't have to nestle these with any seams. So pretty much you can press them however you want. I'm going to try to press them to the dark. So this navy blue, I'll put the orange, and then on the purples, I'll put the purples, and then, you know, so I'll try to press to the dark as much as possible. And I'm going to do that from the back so that I can control it a little bit better. That just seems to work for me, but maybe you used different colors, so just use your best guess on how to do it. But again, it's not going to be life altering because we're literally just cutting a strip 24.5 that will be used for the rocket ship. Okay, and then now I can go from the top, and we're not really ironing, we're pressing, right? So we don't want to stretch those seams. We're just doing our best here to reinforce what I did from the back, and it's looking pretty good. I feel great about this. Okay, and so now I just need to make a cut of 24.5. I'm just going to go ahead and straighten my end here. Here we have our number 2 block, the rocket ship, and you should already have the cap that goes on the top. So there we have it. I hope that you have fun playing with color, figuring out your style and sort of what you want this to say. I think this is a great thing to personalize as well. So if you do embroidery, you could name this something, you could put writing in there, you could applique something, you could do so much with fussy cutting, trying to decide the theme of your quilt. So I cannot wait to see all of your ideas. Please post in the Pink Bonanza. I love to see all of your creativity. So until next month, have a great day. Bye.